X-ray came back. Doctor's like, the rib's broken.
21 years old, and he was looking at my life, and he was like, I gotta warn you, wherever you're headed right now is not in a good place. And I'm sitting there like, but my wife deserves this, and I deserve that.
I think the worst part about pride is a know-it-all. Like, I don't know if you've ever talked to someone that is super prideful. It's always like, I know.
In this podcast, we talk a lot about creativity. Pride is huge in the creative space because, you can be like, I'm better than you. I know more than you. So don't even come near me. Or at the same time, you're judging somebody based off of like their starting point. And you forget like that you were once that guy who maybe
you're trash and they can't even tell you you're trash.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You just get offended, and it's like, bro, if you were just to take a little criticism, you'd probably grow from that. But, it's so true. It's like being a creative and pride just are not good things. Welcome to the 99 for 1 podcast. I'm Rob.
I'm Matt.
And if you've been following us, you know our tradition here. Got our mugs. Cheers.
Gotta show the camera. You gotta show them what you got today.
I got the doctor's orders.
Matt. I got that grave digger.
Make that boy light up.
Let me see if I got this right here. Sure. That's a good lecture item for sure.
It's a newer edition, but still cool. Get a little sippy sip.
If you know Gravedigger, comment Gravedigger down below.
Or your favorite monster truck.
Oh, true.
I'm a Toro Loco guy all the way.
Oh, yeah, you are. Turn that there.
But as you can see, I have the prescription doctor's orders right here. It says prescription coffee for Mr. Java Joe Espresso.
Oh, Java Joe.
Drink 1 mug by mouth. Repeat until awake and alert. It's the daily grind dose. Yeah, but speaking of prescriptions, I had a little injury. Since the last time we're talking about jiu-jitsu, Matt was over here talking about him never leaving the gym. He was going to leave out on a stretcher.
Yeah. I did say the last episode, I was like, I didn't want to be that guy that leaves out on the stretcher.
Yeah. I mean, luckily I didn't leave out on a stretcher, but I did leave with some injury. Pretty bad injury.
Yeah, you got to let him know.
I mean, I don't know how bad one would consider it, but I broke a rib.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's pretty bad. I'm going to put the photo so they can see this man's broken rib.
Man, yeah, I kind of been out of it. I mean, hopefully today's episode goes well of telling Matt that, man, I just feel like in a little funk, I guess.
Yeah.
I can't really laugh too hard, can't cough, can't sneeze. Learning that, man, just even sleeping is a difficult thing to do. So, yeah. I mean, I know someone's out there praying on my downfall, but I'm going to come back.
So how did you, for the viewers, how did you break it? You got to let them know how you broke it.
Yeah, true.
Because I know, but you got to let them know.
Story time.
It's
funny because I was at the hospital and, I told them, like, I injured it training jiu-jitsu, and they're like, the nurse practitioner came in. She's like, so you took like a karate chop or a kick to the ribs? I'm like, no.
You're like,
it's like that. You think people know what jiu-jitsu is, but there's a large part of the world that probably doesn't know. It's, jiu-jitsu is strictly grappling, right? So we're not there punching each other and kicking each other, which, breaking a rib, I don't know how common it is in jiu-jitsu, but it just happened. Monday, I was training like a normal day, 6 a.m. And there wasn't too many people that day. And I had to start rolling with my instructor, my coach. And he's a brown belt. He's a pretty good sized dude. Yeah. I mean, dude's a world champion. So he knows he's not going to take it, like go hard on me on anything. But, Yeah, it was just something simple drill. We were just doing some training drills, and one of them was escaping someone being, having their legs wrapped around you. He was on my back, and the escape was to roll to your side, and on your, basically should have been my hip, but it was my rib.
Yeah.
And I put all my weight onto his thigh, and I guess I broke my rib. Like, it wasn't like he broke it. He wasn't doing anything crazy. He was literally just, helping me out. And I put too much pressure, and I think I probably had like a small fracture. I thought like I'd pulled a muscle or something at first. I'm like, that feels weird. And I kept training. So I don't know if I fully broke it, but the next day I came Tuesday and we were doing takedowns, and I was doing good. I was like, man, I feel a little sore. Maybe it's just, like I said, a muscle injury. And I had shared with the dude I was training with at the time. It wasn't my instructor. It was just another white belt I was training with. I was like, man, I feel real tense right there. And he's like, yeah, you use muscles that you never used before. I'm like, yeah, that's probably it, right? And so we're playing what was called, I think, King of the Mat. And it's like, whoever gets a takedown stays on the mat. Well, I had got a takedown. Yeah. I stayed on the mat, and the dude I went up against, I had took him down, and I was going to try to like, get a side mount, and he grabbed my foot, and I didn't want to let him like grab it. So I tried to pull away, and I ended up like pulling away my foot and fell right on my rib.
Oh, dang.
And I like, it wasn't like an extreme pain, but it definitely was pretty painful to where I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, don't even get on top of me. I'm like, dude, like I try to like scoot away. Like don't touch me type deal. Like, when you kind of get your air knocked out of you, but I didn't have my air knocked out. It was just like, oh yeah, there's something wrong. Definitely. And everyone's like, you good? I'm like, yeah. They try to give me one of those foam rollers. And I'm like, I can't use that.
Oh,
I
like, couldn't put your pressure on
I was
that,
like, I can't put no pressure on my rib. And they're like, oh, it's probably a tendon or a muscle. And I'm like, yeah, definitely. And I got home, stayed throughout the training, just sat out. And then my wife was like, nah, I think something's broken. I don't know why she had that, discernment that something was broken. But, I got the VA. So I'm like, let me just go get an x-ray done, see what's up. And x-ray came back. Doctor's like, the rib's broken. And he was a jiu-jitsu guy too, blue belt, and he was like, I just broke my rib 2 weeks ago.
Oh, dang.
And so he's like, it's not a big deal. He's like, it'll heal up in like 6 weeks. It'll be fully healed. But being on my journey, my fitness journey, it was definitely like something I did not want to hear, especially so early on. Especially doing jiu-jitsu. It was barely gonna be like my 4th week. And I didn't even get a.
Yeah, when I saw the photo being sent to me, I was at work, and I was shocked. I was just like, this dude broke his. First, I was like, what is that? I was like looking at the photo. I was like, what?
I didn't even say nothing.
Yeah, I was like, what is that? And then as I looked closer, I was like, oh, that looks like it's broken. And then that was like the first thing I thought. The first thing was like, man, this dude had some momentum going. Everything was like moving. Like, you had a routine. You had like the getting up in the morning, going to the gym, getting to your jiu-jitsu class, and one day to the next, everything completely changed. It was like a big change, not just like a small change.
I can't lie. It was definitely like kind of devastating. I try to be a little bit. Wednesday, I was trying to be motivated, proactive, woke up, really couldn't do much. I mean, I can walk. I can kind of do things normal. I can't drive. I had to sleep on the couch for like the past 3 days. And then last night I tried to sleep in my bed, and it was not working out. I couldn't sleep at all. I was like up, tossing and turning. So definitely a humbling experience as far as not being able to do the normal things, and especially like working out. Like I didn't think that was going to affect me, mentally too. It's just like, man, I kind of felt a little depressed this week, just not being able to do my normal routine. So yeah, it's definitely a humbling experience. I didn't think I was going to get that humbled that quickly. I know jiu-jitsu can definitely be humbling, but usually it's because people tap you out, not because of an injury. And anyone who's ever had an injury, I'm sure where you can't do certain things that you normally would do, it definitely becomes a humbling experience for sure.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it. I was like, I haven't had anything broken, but I have had some setbacks that are humbling, like you said, you know, especially when you're so involved into something. I mean, I always look at fitness as, if you're someone who's physically active, you do have a routine, you know, you start seeing those gains and improvements. And as soon as that comes to a stop, you know, you're just kind of like how you said, getting depressed, getting down. And I put myself in your shoes when I saw that, because I was just like, that affects the both of us, you know, because I'm just like, oh, I can't just, oh, hey man, sorry dude, we got that run club on Saturday, you gotta sit back on this one. So it was
that was like kind of the first thing my mind went to, was like, dang, what are we gonna do Saturdays? Like, we had this momentum going for the run club, and I was like, let's do coffee, you know. It's something everyone that's following us sees that we enjoy together. So we're like, let's do this coffee meetup, and that's what we did today.
Which was really cool to do, because I think it took the run club thing, not saying like, oh, this is completely out of the picture. I was saying on today, I was like, it would be cool, like, we have all these little entities in the 99 for One collective, where it's like we find somebody who's a devoted runner, and you know, he continues the run club, and then everybody loves coffee, and there's some people that are watching the podcast that are huge coffee drinkers. And so for me, I look at it as like, it was just the two individuals that came today. Shout out to Victor and Gilly, but it was a really great conversation. They got to give us some feedback about the podcast. And then, you know, we got to hear some of their side of like what they're going through, and we gave them the topic for today. So I think, I don't want to say like, oh, you know, good thing you broke your rib so this can happen. But I think you always hear when something like this happens, adapt and overcome. Like, you know, how are you going to overcome something like this? Because it's not a huge, I mean, it's not a small thing. Like, this is a huge impact on like the life, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you definitely have to look at the like the goods that come out of certain negative situations. And you know, even though it's difficult sometimes, when it's like, I was really enjoying it. Like I even shared with you, like, I'm gonna go compete, you know, in like 6 weeks, like just to try it, you know, see what that competition is all about, and see how it is to compete. It's especially like jiu-jitsu, it's something that is a single person sport. Yeah, I know me and you kind of mostly played a team sport, but when you have a single person sport, you really see your character come out. And I think that is why people consider like jiu-jitsu so humbling, because at any given day you can get beat by a bigger dude, smaller dude, you know, size don't matter, age don't matter. You can like just get humbled. So it's definitely a test of character. And I think that's kind of why I was like, man, how am I gonna, I'm still kind of learning how to overcome this. But like you said, luckily we were able to go out, do something different, and got to, you know, enjoy our morning still with people that probably wouldn't have wanted to go running.
Yeah, because they said to themselves, they're like, we're not runners.
We're not so, you know, getting to experience that time where we're not just, you know, getting physical, like we always say, we're not just edifying our physical, but the spirit, right? And that's what we did today. We kind of, like you said, shared the topic with them. They gave us their opinions on what they kind of see in the podcast, what they like about the podcast. And that's kind of, you know, like you said, something we want to continue. I don't know if we're going to do it maybe once a month or maybe every Thursday. I know you're kind of saying maybe we should do like Thursday evening, do like a kind of a coffee thing. Yeah. But that was kind of the whole, what I wanted to get out of the coffee and hang out with people, was like, let's see what they like about the podcast, what they get from it, like just some honest feedback. Because you know, you can get comments online and you know, but to hear and get to sit down and talk with people, I think that was super fun. I think it was a really great time. But going back to the injury, what, you know, do you feel like has drastically changed things? Like, do you feel like you're not having to like ask for more help for stuff? Like what has changed in, you know, because I know you were doing everything on your own. You know, you had the routine, you had the gym, you had everything, and now like everything has changed. Yeah, I think, I mean, a lot has changed, but like I said, I'm still pretty mobile. You know, things I enjoy, I can't do, right? Yeah. Work out, laugh. I can't even, you know, laugh about certain things. I'm like, dude, chill out. I gotta settle down. But driving, like, just even something simple like that, driving was hard. And, you know, my wife, no offense to her, but I prefer to drive, right? I'm the person who always, whenever we go anywhere, I'm driving. So yesterday we were hanging out and she was driving me around. So I think that's just something right there alone that I'm not used to doing. And then like my grass needs to get cut. So I'm like, dude, I'm going to have to ask somebody to cut my grass or pay somebody, one of these dudes from the church or these young dudes, pay them.
I'll get Jeremiah to come over and cut the grass.
Yeah. And just like simple things. I mean, I've had worse injuries, right? Where they kind of put me in a position, like I said, if anyone's had a serious injury, I remember being laid up in the hospital, can't even shower, can't use a restroom. Like that is humbling. And anyone who's ever had that happen to them, it can be a sometimes demoralizing thing, right? Especially if you're someone like me, not growing up taking too many handouts and kind of being a little prideful when it came to handouts. I didn't like receiving anyone's help because I'm like, I got all this on my own, did it on my own. When in reality, like, we never do anything alone. No. We always have someone's help, either someone physical or God's help, right? So I know, you can definitely have to swallow some pride when these types of things happen. And I think that's where I find myself is like learning to just be okay, especially now that I have a wife. Like, I'm real big on like, just let me do it because I don't want you to hurt me and then I'm going to get mad. But just like, she wants to help and being able to just be like, you know what, I see your, I understand what you're trying to do and I appreciate it and not letting my pride or my ego get the best of me. So it's been difficult, having to swallow some of that pride.
No, yeah. I mean, with this happening, it brought up like the topic for the week that we were like trying to think about doing for the podcast. And at church on Wednesday, you're like, what should we do? And I was like, thinking about it, I was like, automatically the light bulb went on in my head. And I was like, well, this dude broke his rib. This is like a humbling experience. And not to say like you had some pride and ego. I was like, oh, this man got humbled. Like, it was coming for him.
Or that I went and broke my rib just to have a topic to talk about.
No, but it was more of like, it humbled you. Like in the sense of like, how you said, I had this competition coming, I had all this going on, like, and sometimes God does that, he will humble you, not in the sense of like you deserve that, but maybe it was saving you from something that could have happened, or, maybe you went to competition next month, because I know that's what you're telling me that you wanted to do, but it made me look back on like questioning myself. I was like, am I a humble individual? Like, or do I walk around with this big old ego and this pride that, I have? How do people truly see me? Because sometimes we can always be like, oh no, I'm humble, like but I had to be honest, I had to go and look at what humility meant, because I was just like, I am humble. But when I started to read about humility and also look at scriptures about humility, I kind of saw myself a little bit far away from that. And I was like, maybe I'm not a humble individual that I thought I was. So I think going into the topic, talking about humility, to me, sometimes I could be prideful, in a sense of wanting to be, I'm going to say better than other individuals, but sometimes not in a good way, sometimes in a way of like, if I'm doing all the work, why is that other person, kind of like, they're not doing anything. Oh, you know what? I'm going to do this for me and I'm going to like get my own. And I think when the injury happened to you, I could have been like that. I could have been like, this dude's down and out. All right, time for me to lock in some more miles. Let me go do that week class of jiu-jitsu that he said he was. But I think for me, realizing like you need to check your pride, but sometimes like you're not the one to check it. Somebody's gonna come around and like check it for you.
Oh yeah, that's definitely, I guess, where I see myself is like, it's one thing to look at yourself in a situation and like, like you said, evaluate yourself. Am I being prideful in this certain, at my work or wherever, or, in the sport or whatever competition, you're having, like, are you really being humble? And some, like, you check yourself. This was not a moment where I was looking to see if I was humble. And like you said, I think I was kind of getting a little, not prideful, but a little ahead of myself, right? I was doing a lot, dude. My, you hear my routine and it's like wake up at 4, I'm praying, I'm at the gym by this time, and then I'll go do 2-a-days, and then, you know, I'm cutting hair, I'm doing all this. And it's like, maybe I just needed to take some time, take a step back and relax. Like, I think I was biting off a little more than I could chew. And I think that was kind of, like you said, a moment for God to kind of check me and say, look, I know you have the right intentions, but maybe you just need to take a little step back and kind of look at everything and reevaluate yourself. And I think it's good sometimes to evaluate yourself before it gets out of hand, right? Before we get, you know, a little too prideful, and then, you know, what does it say? Pride comes before the fall. You know, I don't want to find myself falling or failing because I didn't check myself when I needed to. Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
No, yeah, for sure. And I mean, I've been checked many times, and like I said, it wasn't through injury, but I can get ahead of myself to a lot of stuff. And I think now I kind of I'm a little more cautious about different things. But when I look at pride and humility, one of the biggest things that I feel like I was seeing was being a team player. You know, you talked about jiu-jitsu being a one-on-one sport, like everything falls on you. And I think a lot of times when you go through life in that way, you know, it's me, like there's no team involved. The pride starts to rise a little bit. Like, I got this under control. Like, I'm the one that, you know, did X, Y, and Z. And I think I started to think about me and you know, being brothers, having the podcast, we have to work as a team. You know, it's like teamwork is important. So I think when I come back and we're starting up this podcast again after everything had happened, I had to check myself because I'm like, I should care about what he's going through. Like, how is he? Like, I even asked him, like, how you feeling? Like, is your mind cloudy? Like, what's going on? Because humility is actually worrying about the other person more than yourself. There's a Bible verse that I was reading, and it talks about, like, true humility is like putting somebody else before you and being like, hey, I care about your well-being more than my well-being. How can I be there for you? Where pride is like, get out the way. I'm here. I could do this. So to me, it's like, we as brothers and whoever's listening, you know, there's some sort of team effort that has to be put into play in life, family, marriage, work, school, where it's like, am I thinking about myself too much, or am I going to be taking care of these people the way they're supposed to? And that's something you taught me, was like, hey, like you said, growing up, there was always this, you kind of like having to go and get it for yourself. Where for me, being the oldest, I can't lie, like, there were some things handed to me that I was kind of like, oh, thank you for this, thank you for that. Like, I'm the oldest, appreciate it. But later on down the road, when things kind of got a little bit harder, it was kind of like, what do I do now? Like, I'm used to everybody giving me these handouts. It's not really me. So I feel like for you, it's kind of like, not that you have this bad pride, but you kind of have like this sense of like, if something were to happen, I can like figure it out. I know what we can do.
Yeah, definitely. It's growing up, like you said, you know, kind of having to go out and get everything. It definitely did create a sense of like, I did this, I got this. If it wasn't for me, like I said, like, that mentality is the worst mentality you can have. Like, me. And it's not as in like, I only care about myself. It's kind of like, oh, well, no one's looking out for me, let me go look out for myself. And some people might not see that as being prideful, but that was like something I had to learn to deal with. Like, that was a sense of pride that I always carried. And now learning that is kind of a flaw that I carry, and having to change that and allow myself to work with others and how to work well with others. I can tell you right now, like, I always want to take charge and take, you know, the lead. And it's not always a bad thing, of course, but I think sometimes I can definitely be prideful when I try to grab and say, let me take care of that. Let me do that. I got this. And I don't give anyone the opportunity to learn for themselves, or, you know, do things or help me. Right. So it's like, I definitely see myself now having to change those things that I used to think were like positive traits that I carried, which they were not. Now that I look back, I'm like, man, what did people think about me when I was there trying to take the charge, take the lead. Like I used to think, oh, I'm a leader.
Yeah.
But in reality, people probably being like, this dude is so prideful, so arrogant.
Yeah.
He doesn't know how to work as a team. Like, and it's crazy because like being brothers, you would think we would be, kind of team players, but we've shared like we're two different individuals. Yeah. Where I always saw Matt as a little bit more humble than myself. Of course, he might see himself differently, but I saw him as the humble one and me as like, I'm going to go do this and take care of it myself. So I think, that's usually, I hear people say that's a only child mentality, right? Me.
Yeah.
But I carried that mentality, I guess, because I always had to go try to do things for myself. And now it kind of, as an adult, I look back, I'm like, man, how many bad impressions have I made on people thinking I was making a good impression? Because I'm like, look, I'm going to go show them I can do this. When in reality, I was just, like I said, being a very arrogant person. And it's sad because it's like, man, I probably had this really ugly view. People had this really ugly view of me in their mind. Like, and that now being a Christian, that's not what I want. I don't want to come off as that arrogant type of person.
Yeah. And I think when you think about being humble, a lot of people look at it as like, you're weak, like you're weaker than the other person. Yeah. And I think it's not really that you're weak, but it's that you're selfless in a sense, because you're kind of like, I'm okay if so-and-so gets whatever that I didn't get. That wasn't for me, like that. I look at, things that happen in my life where a lot of times I was like, why didn't I get X, Y, and Z? For example, I look at moments in my life where I wanted so badly to chase materialistic things. Like they call it like keeping up with the Joneses, to where I would be kind of like angry and being like, I'm tired of taking the low route. I'm tired of being humble and just, taking the Walmart brands. I need the name brand stuff. And when I would get prideful and arrogant and be like, I need better for myself, I would end myself in debt. I would land myself in a bad position. So now, as I matured over time, I'm okay with, and of course I do want better for myself and for my family, but I'm okay with maybe driving an older car for now until later on in the future I can afford, the Tesla, that I want for myself, or whatever, the Cybertruck that I want for myself. But it's humble beginnings. So we talk about the podcast, like humble beginnings. And I think once you let pride take the driver's seat in your life and you start to look at other people and being like, I deserve this, I deserve that, I deserve whatever it may be, it lands you in a bad place each and every time. I remember a moment where my pastor had pulled me aside. This was when I was like 20, 21 years old. And he was looking at my life and he was like, I got to warn you, wherever you're headed right now is not in a good place. And I'm sitting there like, but my wife deserves this and I deserve that. And, whatever. I'm young, I'm dumb. I'm seeing everybody get everything that they deserve. And I want something for myself. And he's like, I'm just warning you, like, you don't need all that. Your 2-bedroom apartment that you're living with your wife right now, it's enough. This is enough. And I didn't listen. I said, nope, go put me in that townhome, that 3-bedroom townhome. You know what? In reality, it was just me being prideful, being like, my family deserves better. They deserve to live in this place. In reality, I'm pretty sure my wife at that moment was like, dude, we don't got to move. We don't need to upgrade the car, But I think a lot of times, like I said, when pride takes the driver's seat, it leads you into some bad situations, some bad places where you shouldn't have ended up. And going back to the jiu-jitsu accident, I'm not saying that your pride wasn't get the best of you, but what if, the injury would have been worse, or maybe like you would have got like super hyper, addicted to the gym and these different things. And God is saying, like, cause he is a good father. He's like, hey, take a break. You don't need that yet,
Yeah, definitely. It's one of the ways I had to evaluate myself. Like I said, it's better to catch it before it gets worse. Like anything, right? Like if you get sick, like you want to catch that right away. Yeah. Same with pride. Like you don't want to wait, in your example, till you got the 3-bedroom home and it's about to ruin your credit or the new car because you were seeing other people and, you know, jealous, pride got the best of you, I need it too. You don't want to find yourself in that position. So I do look at it like I'm grateful it happened this way than what it could have been a lot worse. We always say, you know, it could definitely be worse. So broken rib, I'll take it, you know, evaluate myself, look at myself and say, was I getting ahead of myself? Was I getting a little prideful? Maybe, you know, like I said, I took some time and like, I need to take a step back, see what I can do better and how I can balance my life when I come back. Yeah. Cause I'm going to come back. Yeah. I'm not going to.
Stronger and better.
Yeah. Dude, Stronger I know, and better. Like I said, people might be praying on my downfall, but nah, this is, like they say, minor setback for a major comeback.
No, yeah.
I'm not going to let it affect me too much. I mean, it did get the best of me this week. I can't lie.
No, yeah.
But I know it's a little chin check real quick, you know, but I like what you were saying. Like, you know, you had to have someone tell you something, but a lot of times we don't want to hear it, right? We get, you know, they don't know what's best for me. I know what's best for me. And I think that is one of those things that you have to sometimes listen, because you can't always see what other people see. And I think the worst part about pride is a know-it-all. Like, like I don't know if you've ever talked to someone that is super prideful. It's always like, I know. And dude, I don't know if it's me or my wife that gave my son this attitude, but my son Jay is always like, oh, I know. It'll be like the most random thing, like, why is the sky blue? And I'll explain like the most scientific reason, like, oh yeah, I know. And it's like, bro, you literally asked me the question and you're saying you know the answer. Yeah. And he's a kid. Of course, I'm not saying he's prideful, but maybe there is something there. Check him. Well, maybe there's something that I'm showing him or my wife possibly, but it's like, that is not the kid I want to raise, the know-it-all kid. Because I definitely don't like a know-it-all, and I don't want to be around those people for sure.
You know, when you talk about being a know-it-all, it reminds me of when I would work with, you know, the film crew that I had. One of the guys would sit there and say, even if you do know it, don't say that you know it all. Like, be willing to like take that. And
that's a good tip, bro.
I do that a lot.
I cannot lie, bro.
I do that a lot.
I never heard that, but you know, that is something I'm gonna apply to my little tool belt of knowledge, you know, to share with people.
Yeah, and a lot of times someone could be explaining something to me and I know it, and I'm gonna sit there and just hear him explain it, because the way he put it was, what if somebody explains it to you in a way that you didn't know, and it's gonna help you out even a little bit. So a lot of times talking to other creatives about like camera stuff, editing videos, I do want to sit there and say, oh yeah, I know how to edit that a little bit quicker, but I'll let that person explain it to me.
Or when you have that person you're trying to teach something and they're like, I know. And I think for me, being that I know it all guy or that prideful character that I've carried before, like I'm really evaluating myself, you know, not just lately because of the injury, but, you know, since I've come to Christ, I've evaluated myself and learned that I did carry a lot of pride. Yeah. But now, you know, I think that saying that says like, you attract who you are. And I think I've attracted some know-it-all prideful people, you know, whether it's drawing, painting, barbecuing, whatever, golf, I don't know what, you know, endeavor I'm on, but I'll have that person that I'm trying to teach something to, and they have that mentality like, oh yeah, I knew that. And it's like the worst thing you want to hear. You're like, bro, even if you did know it, let me just finish explaining because you don't even know what I was going to finish saying, and they're already jumping to the end and just telling you.
And you're listing all those things like barbecuing, golfing, all that stuff. Those are all areas where I feel like you can get that know-it-all in there. And I guess for me, like, I try not to be that guy, because I'm like, what if I do get something out of it? You know, like when I see you starting a fire, you know, here you are using some dried up leaves, and the other day we were like watching you do it, and Emilio was just like, I would never have thought about that. And I'm like, see, like, if we would sit there and be like, oh, Rob's doing a poor job out there. What is he doing with all those leaves? Like, let's go out there and help him. You know, we would miss something. So I think being a know-it-all is...
But y'all were still inside just watching.
We were. I can't lie. We were. But, you know, I think being willing to learn And like how you said, it's who you're gonna attract. And I want to bring and have some people that are like sponges, like, you know, willing to be there, taking on some stuff, and not be like how you said, like, I already know that. We don't need to talk about that. Let's move on to the next thing.
It's like you're just trying to have a conversation sometimes, bro. And people are like, yeah, I know. And I'm thinking back on moments where I know that I've had people try to mentor me or teach me certain things. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll throw a scenario out that I've gone through or try to explain how I already know that. And I'm like, bro, what a poor student of anything that is, right? Like, you're never going to learn with that mentality.
And they're probably going to be like, I don't want to teach this guy ever.
Oh, yeah, because I'm sure, like, now that I have people that I'm trying to show things to and they kind of have that mentality, it's like, how do I become more patient with that type of person and not just write them off? Because you do want to write that person off. You do want to be like, okay, I can't help this guy. Yeah, he knows it all. he's got it all figured out.
And especially that you're being tested with your son, because you can't be like, get out of here. Yeah. We're done. I'm not teaching you no more. It's like God is gonna like work through you. Because I mean, I have Jeremiah. He's always Mr. I know it all, but he's learning how not to be that guy. But there's a lot of times where I'm just like, does he not get it? What approach, what way do I have to go through it? But do you feel like, because I know we're talking about humility, you're talking about pride, but do you feel like there's a sense of like a healthy type of pride, like taking pride in something, you know, like when you're building something?
No, for sure. I mean, it's sad because it's like pride has been, you know, kind of grouped together with this negative characteristic that people can carry. And I think you don't often think of pride as something good. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, I think we should take pride in certain things that we do. I mean, being a Marine, I think all Marines take pride in saying that they earned that, you know, Eagle, Globe, and Anchor, which is something that we earn to wear. Like you can't get that tattooed on you. Yeah. You can't wear it out. Like, bro, if we see anyone wearing a Marine Corps, you know, shirt, hat, whatever, like we automatically assume like you earn that. So we take that pride and we're always like, Semper Fi, brother. Yeah. Like anytime you see a Marine, they're always like Semper Fi. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, I know Marines can definitely be a negative prideful, but you know, in that same aspect, I think actually caring about something, taking pride, right? Taking pride in the way you look and the way you talk, the way you act. I think those are all healthy, prideful things. I mean, I don't know if you want to add to that list.
Yeah, I think when I think about healthy pride, I think of like, we talk about like the spirit of excellence, like doing everything with kind of like that sense of like, Dad used to say this, right? He used to say, if you're going to do something, like do it all the way. Like, give it your, if you're in a vacuum, don't just vacuum that little corner and leave that dust here. Yeah. Like, you know, like kind of like, you know, taking the initiative, do it the right way and do it 100%. When I think about like taking pride in something, that's what I think about. Like whether it be working on my truck and I just finished up and there's all the tools laid out, you know, am I going to be that dude that just like leaves it all thrown there and then someone comes over and they see that and they think of me, oh, this guy is like lazy, this guy doesn't care about his stuff. Or they come over like, oh man, this dude has his tools all set in place. Like, I'm gonna let that guy work on my truck or, you know, whatever it may be. So I feel like that is how I look at it. Like, I want to do everything with a sense of like excellence down to the minor things. I mean, do I all the time? Yeah, probably not. You know, there's gonna be some times where we could be lazy this, and, you know,
this podcaster that I listen to, and he's one of those like, you know, super hardcore, like, you know, motivational dudes like Jocko and it's not Jocko, it's another dude, I can't remember his name, Bedros something, right? And he always says like, how you do anything is how you do everything. Yeah. And you know, to an extent, that's so true. Yeah. Like he always uses the example, like if you see something, like if you look in someone's car and there's a bunch of like cheeseburger wrappers, McDonald's cups, receipts, like their home's probably filthy just like their car. It's like how they do anything is how they do everything. Yeah. And I think, you know, talking about that spirit of excellence, like is a big thing that we should kind of have a little bit of pride when the way we do things. You know, the way we take care of anything is it should be a sense of, hey, I appreciate what I have. You know, I'm a good steward of the things I have. I don't think that's a bad thing, you know, to have, is that spirit of excellence, as you said. I think it's something that we should all try to carry, at least in some aspects of our life. Maybe you can't carry it in everything. Like, I don't know, some of these dudes are like super motivated and everything's just perfect. They do everything perfect. I mean, we're human, bro. I can't sit here and say my truck hasn't been filthy. Catch me on a bad day, bro.
No,
you know, my truck's probably been dirty. It doesn't mean my house filthy. You know, it's just sometimes life gets busy and I don't get to take care of things. But I remember in the Marine Corps, it would always be like, if one of us gets in trouble, it's gonna appear on the news like local Marine did this, did that. So it's like they lumped us all together. Same with Christians, right? One bad Christian does one thing wrong and they lump you together with everyone. So it's like we should carry ourselves in a certain manner that maybe other people aren't doing. I think that's, like we said, a good little sense of pride that you should carry. Yeah.
And it definitely sets you apart from, I don't want to say the average individual, but I think once you hear somebody doing something that you're not, it kind of like, for me, it like fires me up, you know, like I have to check myself if I'm snoozing the button and showing up late to work, right? Because that's not only representing yourself, but you're representing everybody, especially if you say you're a Christian, like, oh, that Christian like wakes up late. I only can imagine like how he shows up to church, X, Y, and Z. So taking pride in the sense of like how you do work, I think is also important, because I think to me, showing up early has for some reason always been like this huge thing where like I don't want to show up late to things. Maybe because growing up, showing late to parties is always like the worst feeling, because like you got to go around and tell everybody hi. And to me, I always tell my wife, like, let's show up early to a party so they got to come and say hi to us. Like, we're going to get up, we're going to say hi to them. But I think you
make grandma go say hi to you?
I'll go say hi to grandma. But I think, you're right. Like, there has to be things that we take a sense of pride, and especially being a father. I think about that. Like, I'm a proud dad. Like, so if you're a proud dad, that means that you're proud of what you have done, whether it be with your kids, your family. You know, you look back and you're like, you know what, I did a really great job at raising those kids. Or are you going to be like that dad that, man, I could have done better. Like, I probably could have spent more time with my kids, you know, raising them a better way. Or my son always checks me, you know, he's like, Dad, you know, come and he has like a little Bible story book, and he's like, you're going to come read the Bible to me tonight? And I'm like, yeah, I'll come read, and I'll read with them. But there's just like some nights where I'm just like, Dad's tired, don't want to go over there. But I had to check myself and be like, man, if I miss this night, then it becomes another night, and then another night. And the next thing I know, I'm no longer reading to him, and he's no longer caring about it. And then I'm going to look back and be like, man, I wish I would have spent that extra time with him. So I think taking pride in being a father and raising your family is a huge thing.
I think, you know, you have that opposite end of the spectrum too, where people are kind of like, you know, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be that person who, that's too much, you know. And I think that's a sense of pride in itself. You know, not wanting to do what is right just to prove a point. Like, I don't have to do, you know, what Matt and Rob are talking about. I don't have to live my life like that. Like, I'm going to go the opposite direction. It's like, dude, you got to check yourself. Like, anything, you know, with that mentality is not good. Like, if you're looking at yourself and saying, I'll do it my way, you probably have a sense of pride. Because I've definitely been that person who says, I'm going to go, like, oh yeah, they can do it, like I can go do it this way and still get the same results. And it's like, who am I trying to prove anything to? First off, like, you know, I'm, you know, ego tripping, like being a weirdo. Like, dude, just, you know, humble yourself, take some advice. You know, I'm not, you know, if you're talking to me about being a father, being a husband, and I don't do those things, I'm not going to be quick to get offended. I'm going to look at myself and say, why am I not doing those things? Are those things really important? Or, you know, it's just something that he likes to do. And, you know, about, like we talked about, evaluate yourself, ask yourself, is that you know, something that you need to start doing? You know, do you need to start reading to your kids? Do you need to start, you know, tucking them in at night? Or is that just something that Matt, you know, does for his enjoyment? But
yeah, I think once that offense starts to kick in, you got to check yourself. You know, I think a lot of times for me, taking criticism, I'm not gonna lie, has been a hard thing for me. Whether it be a simple task of somebody at work telling me I forgot to take color paper out of the printer, and they're like, you know, trying to remind me, and all of a sudden something's stirring up where I want to like, well, what about the last time you left a coffee cup dirty in my, you know, whatever. Like, I think once you start to kind of get that just anger from like someone trying to tell you something to do, you got to check yourself, because I think criticism is needed. Good criticism is needed for growth. And I think a humble person, you know, who has humility, is going to be willing to like sit there, listen, and really listen, not just like be on their phone and like, oh, this guy's trying to tell me what to do again. Like, all right, whatever. And then be like, are you done? And then walk away. But really hear out that person and be like, hey, you know, how could we do X, Y, and Z better? Or, I mean, I think anybody who's trying to grow in life should be willing to take some sort of criticism, you know, in whatever avenue.
Yeah, I was saying this yesterday, but there's a difference from hearing someone and listening to someone. I could hear what you say all day, but do I take that advice and actually listen to it? Or is it just, you know, like they say, going in one ear and out the other? I think being a good listener, right, in marriage, I think that's kind of like one of those things I'm having to learn, you know, as a husband, as a father, is how to listen, right? And not just be quick to write it off. Like you said, get offended. My wife says, you know, hey, I think you're doing this wrong, or hey, I think we need to do this better. Yeah. You know, like we talked about, don't be spending your money on nonsense. Like, what do you know, woman? Like, don't be acting like that. You know, I think actually listening is a good, you know, way to show that you can take some constructive criticism. I know our dad used to always say that, like, you can't take constructive criticism, although some of the criticism was just kind of like, bro,
it was harsh.
You're not constructively criticizing, you're just criticizing.
No, yeah, for sure.
You're just, you know, bashing me.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be that person, right? So it's like, learn how to receive that criticism well. I think that's a good characteristic you need to have if you want to grow, right? And this is all stuff we're talking about, like, if you actually want to grow in your life, in your marriage, as being a father, being a friend. Like I said, no one wants that friend who knows it all. So I think being a good listener is definitely something
especially in marriage. If you want to have a successful marriage, I think the best way that was put to me is marriage looks like two servants serving each other, right? Like, there's no, I'm better than you, you're better than me, or there's no like tally marks of, oh, hey, I washed the dishes last week, you know, you better go and do laundry today. Humility has to be there. Like, you have to be willing to say, hey, we're a team. You know, I tell that to my wife all the time, like, hey, we're a team. Like, if something is affecting you, it's affecting me. If something's affecting me, it's affecting you. You know, the Bible talks about like carrying each other's burdens, you know, and I think that's a huge thing in marriage, is being willing to be there for one another and not just be so like, I'm the man of the house, come take my boots and my socks off. And, you know, like there's this, I think there's a sense of like, as soon as I walk through that door today, you know, whatever happened at work, it's not going to affect my family, or if, you know, whatever you're going through, it's not going to affect my family. I'm a husband, I'm a dad. When I walk through that door, I'm going to turn that switch on and be there for my family. So I think, you know, if you want to be successful and have a happy marriage, you got to be a humble individual. And I'm not saying like, you know, not have, because I think there's good conversations, and I don't want to say arguments, but, you know, there's good conversations to have in marriage. They're not going to always be, you know, perfect, you know, green grass outside and everything's great on the inside. I think there's going to be some moments where, if y'all are both two individuals willing to serve and humble each other, I think it'll work out. But if pride's in the mix of it, you know, who knows what it's going to turn out.
You know, talking earlier about like, you are who you attract. It's also like, you can create the person that you don't want, you know, to be. I mean, I guess the best way to explain is like, me and my wife been married for 6 years now. And for the first 3 years, we weren't serving Christ. And like I shared in the other podcast, we got married for all the wrong reasons. And back then I was this, prideful, egotistical, person that just, I look back on, like you shared, like, I'm not proud of that guy at all.
Yeah.
And I think that turned my wife into, someone who had to learn how to deal with that, who got a little callous, who is now having to see like who I'm changing to be, but she now has to relearn how to be a little bit, like, okay, this person isn't the old Rob I used to date.
Yeah,
He's actually, he actually means what he says. Like, that's one of the biggest things I actually like don't like about being that person I used to be is now when I try to tell my wife something, like, you look beautiful today. She's like, she takes it as a joke. She laughs.
That's messed up.
Yeah. Or she's just like, what do you want? What do you need?
Yeah.
Like type deal. And it's because I was that person that was so prideful. Like, I didn't need to tell you those things. I didn't, I was just, in the wrong mindset during those times. So we always joke and say like, we've been married for 6 years, but it wasn't until like we came to Christ 3 years ago that we actually truly got married and learned what it was to, like you said, be equals and respect each other. And men who are not married yet, learn from my mistakes. Don't build your wife into someone you don't want her to be because of your pride, because she'll have to learn how to deal with that, and it's not going to be pretty. Like she's going to do her best to deal with someone, or you might find yourself single because no woman wants to deal with a man who thinks he's in charge of everything, who can't take criticism. She doesn't have a voice. Like those are things that in a marriage are like not cool. And probably, one of the leading causes of divorce is your wife's not heard. She's not listened. She doesn't have a voice. She can't speak because you don't listen. Like, dude, learn to humble yourself and listen to what she has to say and take that constructive criticism. So learn from my mistake, men. Future husbands out there.
It's cool though that you're like saying that y'all learned and then like decided to change it. Because sometimes people are just stuck in their ways and they're just like, we're good. You see that all the time in marriage, especially where it's just like 30 years married. They don't talk to each other, the husband's out playing pool with his pool team. The wife's out, shopping, spending all of his money. And there was never like a happy marriage because you had two prideful individuals not willing to change, not willing to say, hey, maybe we're doing this wrong. And I mean, I'm the same way too. I think if you, especially as being the husband, like whatever example you set for your wife, for your kids, they're going to follow it. So, hey, if dad's out here, bashing the neighbor, inside the house, like, he hasn't cut his grass for 30, some odd days and, dude's lazy, that you'll watch your sons start to do, or daughters to start doing the same thing, judge people, your wife's going to be the same way, coming to you. And you're now all of a sudden, you are both in like a toxic relationship and you don't even know it because it's so normal to you.
Yeah.
So I think in life, you have to learn, like how you said, evaluate yourself. Like, I think has to be moments where you have to take a step back and being like, am I doing this right? Like, is my life actually supposed to be like this? Especially with pride. Pride will creep in at any moment and you don't even know that you're back to square one all over again. I think especially, in this podcast, we talk a lot about creativity. Pride is huge in the creative space because, you can be like, I'm better than you. I know more than you. So don't even come near me. Or at the same time, you're judging somebody based off of like their starting point. And you forget like that you were once that guy who maybe...
Or you're trash and they can't even tell you you're trash.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You just get offended and it's like, bro, if you were just to take a little criticism, you'd probably grow from that. It's so true. It's like being a creative and pride just are not good things because, there's a lot, being a Christian, we always talk about like, you haven't made it. And even in the Marine Corps, that was a big saying, is like, you haven't made it yet.
Yeah.
Like you don't make it till you get out. Right. And it's like same with being a Christian. You don't make it till you get to heaven.
I like that. Yeah.
Like
that's true.
It hasn't ended. Right. Like we're still learning. It's still a learning process. Right. Like you were talking about our children seeing certain things. And I think, pride is something that you can't see yourself. like you said, it creeps in. It's always something that someone sees before you see it yourself. And then by the time you know it, like if you can't take the criticism, you're there all alone because you were too prideful to actually receive. And I think, like we said, pride is something that has to be checked constantly. I don't think you become this humble person and the rest of your life you're just this humble individual. I think there's always going to be certain things that arise. Maybe you play video games and you get good at it. You become prideful, like you said, and you're just trash talking people on your mic and, bashing these kids that barely learning how to play, like, or whatever, you do in life. You don't remember where you started and you're there, criticizing people. And then once it comes time for people to say, hey, look, dude, like you've been acting a certain way. You're getting a little prideful and you get offended and you don't want to hear it. I think pride is just one of those things that like I said, you can't see it yourself. Someone always sees it before you do. And either you're going to let them share that with you or you forget all about where you started and you don't even, go back to that, finding yourself, reevaluating yourself and trying to get back to that humble place and remembering where you were once.
Yeah. No, it's true. And I think the one area when we talk about humility is like false humility, right? Like getting to a certain point to where you're saying like, nah, I'm okay, I'm all right at making videos or, like for you, like I'm all right at graffiti. Yeah. Like, no, like I think kind of the false humility has to be countered with the taking pride in what you do, right? It's like, yes, I am good at what I do. Thank you. And then like you might have to just like leave it there. If you know you're driven off of ego, don't start to rile yourself up and be like, oh, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? Or you want to check this out? You have that one guy where it's like, oh, come over here, come to my garage and check.
I've been that guy, bro. I've been that guy.
Same here. But I think
I like you said, I take pride in what I do. So if I've done something that like I want to show it off, but I think that that person who has that false humility, like. They're doing it just so you stroke their ego even more. It's always like, nah, you really think I'm good at that? Yeah. And they're like, yeah, you did this so good. It's like, bro, we know you're good. Like they know you're good. Chill out, receive it, say thank you, but don't be that person who has that false humility so that you can have those people continuously, giving you that praise and that pat on your back because you need it.
Yeah. Hey, you want to come out check out my medal room? I got more medals in here for what I've done. No, I think it's important to have the balance of both, because then people will want to come to you, whether they're starting in something new, whether they're, for me, when I got my old pickup truck, the 85 Chevy, I was like looking for somebody to teach me how to start to work on my truck, because there's a lot of people that don't have patience. There's a lot of people that, know it all, and they're just going to get in there and start wrenching everything for you. Sure. Like, I'm going to fix your whole truck. But I look at my father-in-law, and this dude like has the most patience. This guy can walk me through everything. If he doesn't have the answer, he's going to look for the answer, or he's going to try to point me in the direction for it. So he's like somebody that I'll come to, and, he's a Toyota guy, so he's not really like a Chevy guy, so he doesn't know too much, but he'll be willing to, be like, hey, like, let's check this out, or, and if he doesn't know, it's okay. He's like, hey, I really don't know, man. You might have to go ask somebody. But I think it's good to have the balance of someone, who takes pride in what they do. They're humble, because then you're going to be that guy to come to them and be like, oh, you know what? Or someone's going to point you in a direction and being like, hey, go and talk to so-and-so. Like, he's really good at teaching you about stuff, or he's going to have patience with you, whatever it may be.
I think that's a very valid point, because it's like, how many times have you missed out on something because, you didn't have that humility, and somebody didn't want to share it with you because, or vice versa. Like, no one came to you. You're so good at something, and no one ever comes to you, and you're always like, why do they go to that brother? I'm better than him at fixing whatever. I'm better than him at painting or whatever the case is. And it's like, bro, yes, you are. You're very talented, but you're so prideful that people can't even talk to you because you're there stroking your own ego. You're there, bashing them because they don't know what they're doing. Like, I speak from experience because I've been that guy. Dude. Like, what? You don't know how to do that? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no one, looking back at it now, I was like, no wonder no one ever came to me for that help.
That's messed up.
It's like, dude, you're saying that. I'm like, dang, he's talking about me.
Dang.
Nah, but
That's messed up.
I think it's so true, right?
Yeah.
We have to learn how to be that humble person that people want to come and speak to. Because I look back at, like I said, I look back at myself and it's like, dude, I wouldn't have wanted to go talk to myself about graffiti. It's like, oh, maybe people don't talk to me because I'm so good at it. I just intimidate them. It's like, no, bro, you're just that person that no one can talk to because you're the know-it-all, or you can't take criticism. You're always tripping on something. Yeah. So I think that's a valid point to bring up.
And I've been there too. Trust me, I am not perfect at all whatsoever. I'm sure there's a lot of people that probably try to take my advice on something, and I just, took control, or was just like, had no patience for them. It was like, just, I don't want to talk to Matt anymore. But I think, it just comes back down to like what we're saying is like checking yourself. And when you check yourself, like check yourself. Don't just be so quick to like look at another person being like, that dude's prideful, I'm the humble one. Like, like, cause I think that's where it starts. We start to make ourselves seem like we're better than the other person because maybe there are certain things that we have together and that other person doesn't. That's something that I'm gonna be real. Like, God is showing me how to have patience with people, like from all, spectrums, with work, home, even with family, where it's just like, you're not perfect. Like, you don't have it all together. Maybe your issues that you have doesn't compare to the other person's issues, but it doesn't make you better than the other person. Yeah. And I think that's when, pride does seep in and you start to be like, hey, like, I'm better, so I don't need to like check myself anymore. Like, I'm good, like I'm in the clear. But I think once you really do, or when it's exposed to you, it's something to take care of quickly, because if not, it's going to get the best of you and you just become a very cold, judgmental type of person.
Yeah, for sure. I think, being Christians, it's like, if you have that pride and you see, like we talked about, you kind of fail to remember where you started. And then, I always hear this term used with kind of doctors and nurses. When they have patients, they become callous and they don't like to help people anymore because, I got to go deal with another person. He's always asking for stuff. And then they get a new patient and they treat that person the same, and they keep treating people. And then, like I said, they grow this callous on their heart. And, it's like, as Christians, we have to check ourselves, right? Like, are we being prideful? Are we forgetting, going back to the 99 for one, it's like, are we forgetting where we were once at, when we were that lost sheep and we were barely learning how to walk, how to crawl in this Christian walk? Don't forget that. Like, you didn't just become sanctified overnight. You probably had some stumbling blocks. You probably might still have some stumbling blocks. And, in no way am I, just justifying, it's okay to abuse God's grace. But think back and remember where you once started, and don't get so prideful and say, I got it all figured out. Because like you said, there might be some things that we do have figured out a little bit better than others, but there might be some areas where you're lacking big time, and someone tries to come and check you on that area, and you're like, well, what, like you said, what about this? What about that? And it's like, bro, you can't receive from anyone like that. So I think, that kind of goes into our scripture for the day. Talks about like, being someone who can actually receive from people any criticism, judgment, and how to kind of handle that and what it looks like. I think that scriptures, if you want to go to read that, it's really good. Yeah.
Reading from the real text, Little side note: you got a Bible, take your Bible with you. I've been a bad example at not carrying my Bible with me everywhere I go. But this is found in Matthew 7, chapter 7, and I'm going to start off at verse 1. It says, "Do not judge others, and you will not be judged. For you will be treated as you treated others. The standard you use in judging is the standard by which you will be judged. And why worry about a speck in your friend's eye when you have a log in your own? How can you think of saying to your friend, 'Let me help you get rid of that speck in your eye,' when you can't see past the log in your own eye. Hypocrite, first get rid of the log in your own eye. Then you will see well enough to deal with the speck in your friend's eye. Don't waste what is holy on people who are unholy. Don't throw your pearls to pigs. They will trample the pearls, then turn and attack you.
Yeah, I think there's so many good points in that scripture. Take the log out of your eye, right? You know, someone has a small speck in their eye while you're walking around with this big old, log in your eye, and you can't even see past that log because you're so blinded by your ego, by your pride, by, I've already gone through that, let me help you out. And it's like, dude, go take care of what you need to take care of first. I think, as Christians, in the end it talks about don't like try to give someone who's unholy what you have that is holy. I think we think sometimes that scripture's like, don't go talking to people who don't understand, who aren't Christians. Yes, I think it is saying that in a sense, but I think it's also saying, why am I gonna talk to someone who's prideful? Like you already got it figured out, right? So why am I even gonna try to help you out? So don't waste your time trying to help people who are prideful. I think that's kind of how I would apply that scripture, when I'm not just thinking about non-Christians, I'm thinking about the brother to my left and to my right who isn't able to see, like, do I have some issues? Am I checking myself? Is there some pride? Or am I just quick to judge people? I think we can't be so quick to judge others without, I'm still there. I'm still learning, I might have something to say to someone, but then I have to think like, okay, where am I at in my life? Am I even, should I even be talking to that person and trying to correct them? Or there's still a lot of areas in my life that need some correcting,
No, yeah, it's true. And I think the biggest thing that comes to my mind when I think about the speck and the log is there was a point in my marriage where I was like telling my wife, like, you got so much to deal with, like, I'm good. And in reality, it was the opposite. I had a big old log sticking out of my eye, and she was the one that had like the little speck. And I always go back and I think about these moments where I feel like God was telling me, like, go look in the mirror and look at the person in that mirror. That is the person that you need to deal with first, right? Like, there's always that saying, like, you versus you, or like your biggest enemy is you. And it's true. It's because, like, we can't see ourselves all the time and see that, like, we got some major issues that we got to deal with. And it's easier for us to look at the opposite person, say their problems are way bigger than my problems. They need to be dealt with first before I'm dealt with. Don't come and talk to me. So I feel like that, it reminds me, like, no. Every morning when you're brushing those teeth, go look in the mirror and check yourself real quick and make sure before you start your day that you do start off with reminding yourself, like how you said, I'm a Christian. Yeah, I may be doing this for 5-10 years, maybe even longer, but have I lost my humility and have become a prideful person, and no one wants to come talk to me because I'm the guy in the corner that, has the mind, the knowledge, but my heart is hardened and no one wants to come speak to me. So I think it's an important thing to do, and remembering that, one, Jesus is speaking in this moment and telling us, like, go check yourself. Like, before you even, like how you said, go check yourself before you wreck yourself, because you're about to wreck yourself. Because I think, I'm going to be real, anytime that there's something stirred up here that isn't right and I want to go approach somebody and I go and do it, it's like I'm shooting myself in the leg every time, because it's just like fires back at me, that backfire. Like, man, I was trying to tell my wife this, but then she came back at me with something that was even bigger. And I'm like walking away like, man, Lord, like, I probably shouldn't have spoke up at that moment. You're trying to show me something. So I think that's very important, is like, be willing to be humble in all moments of your life, Yeah,
it definitely goes back to that, look in the mirror. You're so quick to go, I'm going to help this person, I'm going to help that person, and little do you know, you're the one who needs help sometimes. there's no way you have it all figured out.
No way.
There's, if you're walking around like you got it all figured out, man, you must be walking on water with Jesus. And I don't see anyone walking on water, But I think, we can get close. We can, am I saying you can't help people? Mm-hmm. No. I mean, definitely there might be some knowledge, some keys that you have, but are you helping them? Or are you just judging them? Mm-hmm. Right? Because that's what the scripture's talking about, being judgmental.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it's like, check your pride. Am I coming from a place of humility and saying, hey, brother, like, I've gone through that. I've been through that. Let me help you. Mm-hmm. Are you going through that scenario where it's like, oh, you're a sinner, you need help. Mm-hmm. You need to go change this about your life. Mm-hmm. And it's like, bro, you don't even realize like that, like you said, maybe your wife, maybe that person you're talking to, whoever it is the one who has it more figured out than you. And it's like, bro, once you open your eyes and see that, it's like, dang, bro, like I missed it all along. And it's like, how long are you going to miss it before you catch it? Right.
Yeah.
So,
and I think about, I was going to say something because when you're speaking about that, I thought about this, but I think about your injury, right? And it's like, how did Rob handle his injury? Because there may be a person that comes along that gets injured. And are you going to be willing to say, hey, man, I went through that and this is how I handle it? Or are you going to be able to say, oh, bro, I was in bed most of the time. I was, upset at the kids. I didn't want no one to bother me, So I think the testing that you're going through is like the small L that you're taking, humbling yourself and saying, hey, you know what, a little setback. But you know what, maybe the setback in that time frame of resting, you got the Dragon Ball Z shirt on. So it's like you're in that pod, like resting up to go back stronger is going to be help for somebody else that's going to see you back at that gym and being like, hey, man, I messed up my ankle, or maybe not that bad of an injury, and being like, how did you handle it? Mm-hmm. And then you get to share like, well, this is how I handled it, and don't go and like stay in bed all day and be angry at the world.
Yeah.
Like,
or don't be that person who's like, yeah, what you're going through is nothing, right? There you go. Know-it-all guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you have a broken toe. Well, I had a rib broken. Like, don't be that guy. I think it's definitely a learning experience. Like, I'm not gonna allow it to go, so long without learning something from. I'm constantly asking God, like, what can I learn from this? One thing I already know is like taking it a little slower. It's funny because it's like you're on top of the world one moment and then you're at the bottom of the cliff the next. But it's a moment to humble myself, think on how I can help someone maybe later on down the road who's going through the same thing, and not feel sorry for myself for sure. I'm not gonna of course, like my ribs broken. I had to take a little bit of rest for a little bit.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
This coming up week, I'm like already ready. Like, how can I, like I said, balance my day out, get my day back started. So I think, like we always share, like, this isn't just for the viewers, the listeners. Like, I think this is moments for me and Matt, conversating, helping each other, learning. Like, man, there's so many things like while he's speaking that I'm reflecting on. And I'm like, man, I've kind of been that way. Or, man, I need to change that about myself. Or, man, I'm so glad that's not me anymore. So I think these are moments not just for the viewers, not just for the listeners, but, for each other. So this is what we wanted to do, was grow with one another, grow with others, like we did this morning at the coffee meetup. It was like getting to hear what other people are going through, and like it was maybe how this podcast is, helping them. I know people always say like, we love how like real you are, like, and that's what we're trying to do. Like, I don't like that word vulnerable because I'm not here being vulnerable. I'm being transparent.
Yeah, transparent. Yeah,
that's what it is. Like, vulnerable means like, hey, let's have some, some cookies and let's talk. Like, I'm being transparent. Like, this is real. This is the stuff I go through. This stuff Matt goes through. How we're dealing with it now, and how we are overcoming these things. And I think pride and humility is something that we constantly have to go through it and, check ourselves and say, hey, have we been a little bit prideful maybe with one another? Are we, being prideful with our children, our family? So I love that we can grow together, and, I hope that y'all enjoy growing with us.
No, yeah, guys, we appreciate y'all. Always tuning in, always, for anybody who is a true, 99 for one follower. We appreciate it. Yes, I know the feedback that we've been getting has been just been great. You know, like this morning was refreshing because it was like we told Vic and Gilly, like it wasn't just like two random people showing up being like, hey guys, just got some coffee, free coffee, you know, because Rob was offering some free coffee for the first person, but they genuinely have sat and watched episodes and like had pointed out little highlights, and most of the highlights they pointed out was just like us being brothers talking to each other, but it's also like us learning on the spot. So we appreciate y'all guys, you know, always watching. If you can, just make sure you like the video, subscribe if you're not subscribed. This is episode 5. We're excited to continue to keep bringing out more episodes for y'all.
Some merch.
Yes. Yeah.
Let it be known.
Yeah. Some merch. Rob is designing some nice merch. Hopefully, maybe if y'all watching the vlogs, y'all can see a little sneak peek of what we got coming for the month of July. But you know, this is, like Rob always says, this is more than just a podcast. You know, this is the 99 for one collective, you know. So I this is just a little piece of what this is going to become, and the merch is next. Yeah. So make sure you're following us on Instagram, the 99 for one collective, and checking out our weekly vlogs that we are trying to continuously put out for y'all. Some behind the scenes stuff. But with that being said, you got anything else you want to say?
Yeah, just if you want, go back, check out some of our previous episodes. Our testimony episode is episode 1. If you want to learn more about me and Matt, you can go check that out. I think that's a good starting point. That way you kind of understand who we are as brothers, as followers of Christ. So we thank you if you stay tuned in all the way to the end. We know sometimes we get ahead of ourselves. Sometimes we just talk and we can go on for hours, but you know, we have to find a point to stop, and we will see you back next Friday. We thank everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, turn the notifications on. We appreciate everyone. Thank you. Peace.
Peace.
We too lit, we live. 407-305. Too hot to walk outside. As soon as I step, I